Hello, everybody. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the new moon in Capricorn. And this is for the 12th and the 13th of January, depending on where you are in the world. I hope that you're well and that even though the current times that we're all experiencing at this point, as I always say, that you're okay today, or at least managing to keep things in some form of calmness or settledness within your life. So there's quite a lot to talk about with this new moon in Capricorn, and I suspect that for many of you, you are experiencing that Venus-Chiron square that's taking place for us, and what that means for us in terms of processing through deeply the kind of Saturn and Jupiter material, right? And I'll go into that as well, what that meant in 2020. So Venus moving across in Capricorn, as I talked about also in the previous, not the previous video, but the one before that, which had Mars in Taurus and Uranus direct. I'll be doing another Uranus direct video as well, just kind of really focusing on my thoughts on that as well. So in terms of Venus and Chiron, what that's going to be, I've got some information on that. We'll talk about that. But I suspect that we may be feeling that at the moment. Chiron's very somatic. Okay, it's cellular memory for us, and it's stored in the body, right? The memory of something that has affected us in a way that's not necessarily good. And so it leads to certain crises in our lives that brings us to awareness of something, whatever that might be. Each and every one of us is different, and Chiron wounds or Chiron sensitivities are very much different for everyone. So in terms of really getting a sense of this Venus square at the moment in relationship to Chiron, this is a very somatic experience. Okay, so the heaviness is the word that comes to me when I think about Venus's relationship with Chiron at the moment in Aries, the heaviness and the sensitivity to realize that there is a necessary need moving forward, like wanting to go forward with some stuff in our lives. Like we want to emotionally move forward with something in our lives. And we're reminded of certain layers of work that just need to kind of just be ironed out a little bit more as we close off the cycle completely with Jupiter and Saturn. Even though they are in Aquarius, there's still lingering energy that is a part of that is very Capricornian by nature. Okay, so enough of me kind of just babbling just off the top of my head on some of the things. What we'll look at today is the chart. Of course, we'll explore that. Just kind of like an opening remarks on the astrology at the moment and what I sense and feel and what could be meaningful to you. We're in this very weird place at the moment, right? I suppose that's probably normal now because of 2020. But we are in a pretty weird place at the moment regarding this new moon in Capricorn. In the previous video on the moon, so the full moon, remember that was in Cancer, we talked about Eva Core and essentially the essence of what was held within her story, which was that, in order for her to have been able to actualize and individuate a deeper soul purpose that she felt clearly that she needed to kind of live in this lifetime. Again, to me, when I say deep soul purpose, I don't mean that she was conscious of that. She just had to go through her life, and just like with all of us, we go through our life, right? And we're all individuating in different ways relative to this emotional journey that we're on. So the experience of her with having all of that Saturn in Aquarius, I can't remember if many of you will remember the chart, but she had loads of material in Aquarius, right? Saturn's there, the North Node's there, Mars was there, Mercury was there, a lot of Aquarius energy. And it was very loaded, like her North Node was very clearly activated with that Aquarius energy. But she had the moon on the South Node in Leo. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go check out the full moon in Cancer video, and probably midway through, I kind of switch over to a chart. So the essence of the conversation, or the essence of her energy as it came through with that full moon in Cancer, as we kind of reflect back on what is closing for us as we enter the new moon in Capricorn, was that we do carry with us a lot of grief. We do carry with us a lot of sadness, a lot of emotions where we may have been excited about certain things and they maybe didn't go the way that we had planned or hoped for. We endure a lot of emotional neglect in different ways, right? Maybe some of you have had wonderful childhoods, or at least have not been in contact with certain experiences where you may have felt emotionally neglected in experience. But for the majority of us, we all, to a certain degree, at some point in our life, have experienced a feeling of being unseen, or a sense of wanting to put a goal or a direction or a sense of dream in place, and we just feel that it's outside of our grasp, or something trips us up, or there's something that feels like there's a heaviness ultimately associated with a period of our lives, right? And that density, or that sadness that comes along with that, or where our expectations can't be met, or we can't meet it in ourselves, or we don't know what our own individual needs are, or we do know how to express them, but we want a relationship and it never kind of manifests, these types of things. All of us in some way, shape, or form carry with us an emotional journey, right? And in her story, what I got out of it, at least, was that, to me, the Capricorn, the nature of this Aquarius energy at the moment is, in order for us to move forward with things, we have to really get a clear sense of what that period of our life was like, where that emotional sadness or uncertainty, or where we felt blocked, like what was important for us. What was really important for us when certain experiences in our lives didn't maybe go the way that we would like them. Why did we attach to that? What was the thing that really that drew us to be very personal? Like, it was a very personal experience, right? What does feeling unseen really mean to you? Say in a relationship, if you have, say, Pluto in the 7th house as an example, right? Maybe you have Pluto in the 9th and you always feel that you're not really understood clearly. Or say you have Pluto in the 11th house, and the idea of really working with a group that really just gets your ideas and you can feel included, but never having that experience. What is it about your story that carries with it that sadness or that pain? And if we can go into that now, we've had Saturn and Jupiter moving through Capricorn from a tropical zodiac point of view. And so we have been in that pain, ironically, right? Yet I feel the difference here is that we are, in a sense, getting the opportunity to step back in a very objective Aquarius way and look at it from an outside point of view, right? So we can see it. We kind of went through Capricorn with Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto conjunctions, etc. And somebody was Adrian, you were asking, what is the significance of having so many Cancer archetypes, right? Cancer moons activated through 2020, right? Solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, full moons, etc., new moons, right? And to me, in a very brief way, 2020, in relation to Cancer archetype, in relation to, on a more broader perspective, what I'm talking about with Eva Core and what her message is, and expanding a little bit further in terms of what this new moon in Capricorn really represents for us as we kind of move through this passage in our lives, this phase, and what we're processing with ourselves, is that there is a very deep, we have throughout 2020 been really processing and really we have really been thrown into the deep end of our emotional material. Okay. And so as we sort of have Jupiter, Saturn exit Capricorn, we get to breathe, but it doesn't mean that pain is gone. It doesn't mean that sadness is gone. It just means that we're not immersed in it. And so that's kind of the key here, that my sense or my feeling is that as we're not necessarily fully immersed and in the process, we're still there with it. It sits with us, but we get an opportunity to look at it from a different point of view, a more compassionate point of view. And kind of the message with Eva here is that if we could look at our pain and we could accept it as something that is not bad, right, but something that is more just what we are carrying, right? If we could see it more through a compassionate or empathetic eye towards the sadness and the suffering that we individually, as in you as a person, have been carrying with yourself. And even to the point where you could kind of look at certain things that you may have wanted to really achieve in your life, or that you wanted to manifest, or you've, for whatever reason. And maybe this sadness that you carry, this pain that you carry, it sometimes hijacks that, right? Where and so as you kind of move forward with this energy, or how we move forward with this energy, is just to kind of look at it from eyes where, say, a child or a mother would look at the child if the child had, say, grazed its knee, as an example, like with really kind of looking at that wound, not so much as I'm a failure, or, I'm broken, or any of the things that could be really seen in a very negative light. And just maybe approaching it from, hey, this is really you. Like, this is a part of you. This is what you carry. And to even go as far as to recognize that some of the pain that you carry with yourself is not just from this lifetime. It's ancestral memory that, say, mom carried with her, or dad carried with him. And, some of the material that he wasn't able to process, or she wasn't able to process, it does get passed down. And we are carrying to a certain degree the weight, Capricorn, of things that have been, affected people a generation above us. And so, in a sense, with this energy at the moment, in many different ways, there are so many different ways that this energy can express itself. For me, there are certain angles that I would like to look at it from. One of them being really looking at the sadness and the pain that we have with us, just like I talked about in the full moon. But in this time round, beginning to not so much actually ignore it, right? Because that would be kind of the opposite of what I'm sharing here, but see it something as just a part of your journey that you're participating in. And whenever it shows up, welcome it in, and have a conversation with it. Let it teach you something. Let your sadness teach you something. Let your pain teach you something. Whether it be a realization of something that's really important for you. That's one of the things, especially when you work with nonviolent communication, you start to realize that there are certain, say, an unmet need, right? And when you express how that need could not be met, you can really get a deeper insight into what is really essential for you. Thinking about Mars and Taurus at the moment, and Uranus and Taurus, where are there parts of your own psychological and emotional needs that may not have necessarily been able to be fulfilled externally? And again, with Capricorn here, a lot of the times we will, especially in the way that we've been conditioned as a society as a whole, right, the tendency to externalize some of that pain and place it in another person and hope that they'd be able to soothe it for us, right? And sometimes it can be literally very literal, like, hey, I'm really upset with you because you didn't recognize that this was important, or whatever, to something a little bit more subtle, like where you maybe can feel and acknowledge some of your sadness and some of your pain or some of your needs that only you can really meet. But you may have placed that in the hands of somebody else because it's a lot easier to hold another person accountable for the crossing of that boundary, as opposed to, say, you being able to recognize that this was something that is, maybe not developed in a way that could be, strengthened in yourself. That being one of them. And then two, where some of that pain needs to kind of be sat with, and then you come to this really deep realization that, like in my case, for instance, consideration is a very profound understanding for me that I know I carry with, because there wasn't a lot of people that really consider it when I was growing up. So I noticed that as part of a kind of tripwire or a shadow material, where consideration tends to kind of get me a little bit upset. And again, I can place that on the other person saying, wow, you're really inconsiderate. Or I can recognize for myself that, for me, I'm really sensitive to maybe not being seen or not being considered because of an early life experience. And it really does come back down to that, honestly. From my point of view, like, I feel like a tremendous amount of our own needs are fundamentally rooted at a deeper part of our early development. And so it kind of plays out more in an animated way as we get older. So Capricorn, kind of to come back to this video here particularly, and bringing the new moon in Capricorn into play now. Capricorn is an archetype in a very feminine way, because it is a very feminine it is a feminine archetype. It's yin by nature. Capricorn invites us to have introspection, right? Capricorn invites us to see limitations not as blocks that preventing you from achieving something that you feel that you want, but more along the lines of maybe a potential block that forces you to look a different way, and in that direction there is growth in an exponential way, but you would have never seen it that way if Capricorn didn't say, hey, here's where I'm encouraging you to maybe change your direction, or perceive things a little bit differently, or contemplate what the underlying root cause of why you feel this is important for you. So reflection in a very yin type of energy accompanies this archetype. And so to have the sun moving through Capricorn, it has been, and of course the moon now there, and Venus also there as well, there's a lot of emphasis on some reflection time as we move through a very profound phase. And that's kind of what I'm talking about earlier when I talked about this is a very weird phase right now in terms of the astrology, at least from my point of view, because there are seeds of evolutionary growth that are ripe with the desire to expand and to grow and to create potential and for new things to bloom, etc. Or not to bloom so much as to actually be embedded into our thought process and into our intellectual ways of seeing things and our intuitive landscape, right? Being able to really, we're fertile. The landscape is fertile at the moment. But if we're bringing seeds that are still tempered with the past, then there's a likelihood that what will occur as new seeds essentially get into a stage of growing, that they can be influenced by that. And so the kind of progression, this passage that we're moving through right now, is one where we get this, it's like a revolving door, okay? And they're kind of like gateways, right? So we're kind of moving through the revolving door and we're transitioning from one cycle to another. And if we get stuck in the revolving door, we'll sort of like move around and around, and we'll just, in a sense, just be spinning without actually moving any direction, right? Whereas ideally what we want to do is move through the revolving door and sort of in a very elegant way shift from the old phase of patterns of behavior or choices that you feel are rooted more in a lower sense of self-esteem, or that there is something that could be hampering you. So this time really provides a profound opportunity for reflection on the inner understanding about what that is. And 2020 was one of those years within the context of, like Adrian talked about or in the email when she was asking, could you tell us more a little bit about what all these Cancer moons really represented? And really it's a cardinal sign. Capricorn is a cardinal sign. Cancer is a cardinal sign. And both are yin, and both are very reflective. And so they reflect change. Change is cardinal, right? So a lot of change took place for us in 2020. And so again, what I feel is that we're kind of processing that as well. We're really sitting with what that change represented for us individually, for us as a collective. And there is that revolving door aspect where the new feels very fertile, and yet it can easily be, as I said, impregnated with old dynamics that will render, I don't even think it will work, to be honest. I think what will occur is that it just won't be able to actually grow, right? Because the energy will be outdated. And so this, what are we nurturing, is how I want to kind of close up my extremely long monologue of information. So thanks very much for sitting with me while I share what I share. I really hope that in some way, shape, or form, which is my catchphrase that I've come to realize, is it was meaningful for you. Okay, so let's look at the astrology chart. And the thing that we're going to look at here, let me just get my annotations. We are going to look at Venus over there and Chiron over there. So that's the square. And that's really what I was tuning into, honestly, guys. 5 degrees of Capricorn, 5 degrees of Aries. The Capricorn Aries square represents the relationship between a sense of feeling powered or in control of something. That's the Capricorn part where we define stuff. The Aries part is the ability to initiate the space between our center and where we feel our boundary is. So Capricorn Aries square represents the way that we assert our boundaries relative to a sense of safety, which is, of course, the T square there. I know we don't actually have planets over here, but we are still bringing our emotional self to the table. So that square at the moment, in terms of us feeling it somatically, is ultimately just bringing to the surface where we may have felt that our boundaries or our sense of safety or our sense of familiarity within ourselves, where our needs, where we may have not been able to really fully express ourselves in a way that really showed up for us, we were present, right? We would be in a way where the energy would bring to the surface that, right? We would be able to become sensitive and aware of that. All right. That being said, this energy also represents the need to recognize that Chiron transiting through Aries is also integrating what Uranus did from 2012 to 2018, which was essentially the innovation of an entirely new direction for us. So as I talked about in the Saturn-Jupiter video, I talked about that in 2012, a lot of people were taking a leap of faith and jumping into a way of living that had never been done before. And now, as we live in 2021, a lot of people who made or took that leap of faith in 2012 are, in a sense, in a very interesting position relative to the current technological shifts that are taking place for us, more online work for a lot of people, living at home. I mean, I remember very distinctly that a lot of Pluto and Libras at that time were, really, really wanting to, well, a lot of people, the only reason why I said Pluto and Libras is because it initiated you guys. How do we work from home, right? How do we work from home? And so now the collective, Saturn, Jupiter, and Aquarius, is being able to understand how to work from home. So this energy over here has a double-edged experience. One side of the lane looks like freedom and, wow, the world is kind of caught up. And then the other side of it looks like, oh my gosh, how are we going to survive? What is going to happen? I don't have that structure anymore. I don't have that consistent routine to do anymore. Things have changed. How do we behave in this way? And the anxiety of separation from something that's known. So, and that will play out in both ways. There's a lot of change taking place, right? The soil, as it were, is fertile with Chiron and Aries, and it wants to impregnate it with a new value structure that's rooted in innovative ways of being. And ultimately, that Mars at 2 degrees of Taurus, trining the Venus at 5 degrees of Capricorn, that energy is pushing the necessary need for innovation, right? You need to change. You need to roll with the times. You need to start letting go of the patterns that no longer serve you, that you've been doing, your comfort zones to a certain degree. You've got to become a little bit uncomfortable and step through the threshold of something that is emerging in your life right now, whatever that might be. I know for me personally, that's occurring, right? Are you ready? Are you ready to go beyond what you feel comfortable with? Would be the tagline ultimately. Okay. So change taking place, right? Now, when we have new evolutionary cycles, you've got to understand that the intention here is that a new phase means that we are developing something that has not come before. Okay, we are developing something that has not come before. And so Mars's relationship to Saturn and Jupiter is in a new, it's not a new phase, but it's in a crisis and action phase. But it hasn't actually Mars has not been here. So opposition 180 degrees. So it's still part of the development phase of things. If I had to kind of draw a T-square over here, this is the developing phase. This is a new phase here, right? Never been done before. Developing and internalizing certain ideas, self-expression. So we're kind of, just as I talked about in the previous video, we're moving into a state of, we've never done this before. It hasn't been expressed in this way, but I know this is what I need to do. Okay. So it's very important to trust your instincts in yourself and to recognize that the threshold is not going to look like somebody coming in and holding your hand and saying, hey, by the way, this is how this works. It's along the lines of, I'm here standing on the other side of the bridge. I believe you can do it. You just have to trust yourself and take that leap of faith, whatever it is that's showing up in your life, right? The other side of that energy over here is the realization of scarcity and, of course, a more financial change taking place. We all know where and how that is happening. Hey, European Union or Economic World Forum, right? So that energy over there is pointing to, again, a necessary shift in direction. Now, Jupiter, Mercury, and Aquarius are in new phase energies, right? Those are new phase energies over there. So again, the thread for something that is developing in our time, it's not here. We need to kind of go with it. We're developing as we go. So this energy is stepping into something completely new, as I mentioned before. And it looks like a threshold in which it feels deeply unknown. Okay. And these new phase planets, I mean, they correlate, like I said, to a new evolutionary cycle. And so this is about being able to expand upon the things that have already come before, but not repeat the same structure. That's what this is saying. Okay. It's begin to move forward and take your wisdom from the past, but do not bring the structure with you, because Pluto and the moon are sitting in, and the sun are all here right next to Pluto. And this energy wants to go over Pluto. So this is going to be a new moon, and then it's going to move over Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury. So this energy is going to bring with it the change, but as it goes over Pluto, it's not bringing with it change only. It's bringing with it what it is that has to die, as in, so that's what it's not going to bring with, something that's died. And it's only going to let you have what is supportive and real and productive for yourself. So it's important to note that the change in direction for us, Capricorn energy, that is waiting for us to impregnate it into the fertile land, or the fertile consciousness, your fertile ideas, is going to come through a feeling of reaching a precipice and feeling like I can't do it. Oh my gosh, I'm being challenged over here. I feel like certainly a little bit unnerved by the experience. Okay, so new beginnings. All right. Now, the Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus square. Okay, so what we're doing here, this Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus, only Uranus, is in a crisis in consciousness square. So the opposite to Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter is a crisis in action. So it's moving forward emotionally with something in a new way. The crisis in action square, crisis in consciousness square with Saturn, Jupiter, and Aquarius. This is more along the lines of something is mutating. Okay. So this is the consciousness is mutating into developing and establishing new beliefs, new ideas, and a new way of looking at reality. So ultimately, the bottom line here is that what you believe determines your values, and your values determine how you're going to live your life and how you're relating to yourself as well as to say somebody else or to your work, etc. Well, that's also fundamentally going to change with this. So essentially, here we're talking about how values are going to determine your lifestyle and how your beliefs operate. So this crisis in consciousness is mutating that. It's changing that. It's opening it up. It's saying there's new insights coming through. There's new patterns wanting to emerge. And the only way to actually ground new energy that's Aquarius is through Saturn, it's through Capricorn, right? This earth energy here is literally saying we need to, in very practical ways, move through and take these ideas and make decisions every single day that essentially grounds the ideas. So, what is changing for you in your life that feels very airy and very kind of in the etheric realms? And what type of attitude, what type of beliefs, what type of choices, what type of actions can you align with through a routine that will help you basically anchor in this new energy into yourself, anchor this new energy into your body? Okay. So the idea here is that the crisis in action, which is Mars and Jupiter and Saturn square, right? It's saying you need to move, right, in a direction by making an action, by actioning something, and by actioning in it, you are at the same time anchoring in the seeds of awareness that are present with you in terms of new idea, a new pattern of behavior that you want. And so, in a sense, this is kind of we're gardening in the most silliest way to describe it. We are gardening, right? So, what does your garden want to look like? How do you how do you want to plant your garden, right? Think of this new place as this open soil, this fertile soil, and what do you want it to look like? And as you know, when you garden, when you plant, when you do anything that is rooted in earth energy, it takes time. So don't rush it. There's no rush. This energy is not asking you to do things at 1,000 miles per hour. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's saying, hey, take your time with things, right? Plant an idea into your reality and then begin to take that idea and live it consecutively every single day for a period of time until it develops a habit. And then that habit becomes an action, and that habit through that action becomes an entire lifestyle. Yeah. And that's where I'm going to leave you with today, peeps, in terms of this conversation. And to the person who was curious about whether or not the new moon, when I have the new moons at the exact degrees and the exact time, there you go. Thanks very much for pointing it out. It is now there for us to enjoy. So here in Sweden, it's 1 minute past 6 in the morning tomorrow. Okay. All right. Just share with you, if you are somebody that wants to work with my material on and furthermore, I have a thing called the Saturn workshop, the Saturn course. It's on my website. I'll put a link in the description, and its purpose is to it's a 4-video workshop that basically goes through different phases of how to consciously work with your Saturn. So that's available in the links in the descriptions, and it's something that could provide you with a lot of value in terms of working consciously with your Saturn. Okay. All right, everybody, have an amazing day and take care. Bye-bye.